What's going on, guys? What's cracking? Working on the wife's car. And yes, it's back on the lift now. I made Colton get the heck out of the way. His car's almost done anyways. You guys saw the previous videos there. So back working on her car because I got a lot of it done. You've seen the AN lines, you've seen the radiator right now. But we need fuel. So I got it on the list because I need to start replacing all the fuel lines. I want to go ahead and thank the sponsor for today, Red Horse Performance. Guys, if you want to, go check out down below or check the website here. Red Horse has supplied all the fittings for today's video. We are also going to be using a Powerhouse Racing in-tank pump setup. So I'm not going to be showing that today. I have to order that. I haven't gotten to that point yet, but I will be using a Powerhouse Racing in-tank setup. I personally have one in my car. It is by far the best of all of them. There's two really good ones out there. There's Radium and Powerhouse Racing. I personally use Powerhouse Racing for this one reason: wiring. Now, everyone's like, it's wiring, right? What's the big deal? Well, they use a mil-spec style connector for theirs. If you need to pull it in and out, you just pop it out. If you look at the Radium one, I don't like that they use, like, in my opinion, it's a very chintzy way of individually having the wires go to the hanger itself, and they just use wire nuts, and it just... I don't know. I just don't like the design. That's a personal thing. I think inside's fine. I think all that's cool and stuff. Assembling it sucks too compared to Powerhouse Racing. Now I've heard some people say, like, getting the Powerhouse Racing one in is a little harder because they use factory bags like on the wall pumps. I've never had that issue. I've taken mine out a couple times, but I've never personally had that problem. So I can't really talk or touch on that subject, but everything else has been pretty easy for me. So again, gonna stick with PHR. But let's go ahead and hop into the car here and I'll show you guys what I'm doing. So here we are, get up under the car here. And I wanted to show you guys. So sorry if you see like the lights like flickering here. Got this LED light, so it's gonna be a little flickery looking. But we're gonna take all this plastic off. That factory fuel filter's gotta come off here. We gotta take out all this protective plastic, and then we're going to use Powerhouse Racing hangers, which I'll show you here in a minute too. There is a total of 3 lines we're removing today, 2 fuel lines, and then there is a vent line that runs the whole way up to the front. The brake lines we're going to keep. Now, one thing you guys will notice, the underside of this still isn't perfect. Now, I painted the car, everything else is good, but unless I really could get this on a rotisserie, I couldn't get it perfect. So I'm also going to coat everything under here. Eventually too, if you can see here, the rear diff's going to be replaced anyways. I'm putting another diff in it, but the subframe needs dropped. That is on my list of things to do. Again, I have twins coming, so that is on the list, but that's that thing I wasn't worried about. Even after paint, I can drop this, have it all powder coated, and bolt it back up. So if you guys see it and you're wondering, Ryan, why haven't you done it? There's your answer. So again, let's go ahead and start taking all these plastic clips off, and let's drop this out. You can see from the factory back in the day, it's disgusting. So let's get this thing out. Okay, so let me turn this out of the way. Actually, it's probably easier. Let it focus itself. You can see here, this car, it was I believe it was a Connecticut car, or it was a DC car, and then it made its way up to Connecticut, but you can see the salt has gotten to it from sitting for those years. So I'm replacing all these lines but 2, but it looks like I might want to go ahead and replace the brake lines. I've already replaced all the ones up front with stainless steel, so that doesn't matter. So from there back here, looks like I might want to go ahead and replace, just because it's one of those things, better safe than sorry. Last thing you want to happen is those leak on you and you're going to have a bad day, a real bad day. So I'm glad I took that off now. I'm going to go ahead and replace those. I'm also going to go ahead, this rod here off the Aristo Trans does not work. If you look here, does not bolt up to it. So what you need to do if you're doing this too, you need to rob the one off your automatic transmission, or you need to buy one of these. Since her car was automatic already, I just robbed it off the NA transmission before I got rid of it, and I'm able to use that rod now. You just pull the little pin out and just slide it up in. Pretty simple. All right, guys, so all the fuel lines are off. Now, again, we are keeping the brake lines for now. I may have to replace those, but you can see all of these are off. Now, I went ahead and put on one of the Powerhouse Racing clips. You can see here, to use these stupid plastic clips that you have to use to screw up in, because you can see it has a stud, but it's not like a normal threaded stud. So you have to use these plastic clips. I have to order some more. I don't have any right now. I did save all 3, but they look like crap. So I'm gonna buy 5 new ones, because you're gonna need 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I always like to put one here also. Now, they don't send you 5 of them, so you need to order an extra one, but it's nice to have it there just because it holds those lines up nice and tight. There's a couple clips up above you need to remove, cut the lines, old stuff off. Now I gotta take the car down and remove the fuel lines and stuff up inside the tank area. Okay guys, so I got a good bit of her car taken care of here. Ty Morris is over there and helping, so I want you guys to be able to see some of this here. Again, sorry for the weird lines. Let me turn that away because it just makes it look worse. So you can see here, we only have the brake lines left now. And again, they're not the greatest. I already got one of the PHR mounts up just to hold it there. I need to get more of these plastic clips. If we come up here, again, look at the, I don't know what they used back in the day to undercoat this, but it's terrible. Look at that. I'm gonna have to spray this all black under here too. Again, that's why I want to get this stuff off. I gotta drop the diff out, and eventually I'm going to drop out this whole subframe. Look at all this surface rust and stuff. It's just annoying little things. So again, you can see some of the stuff that I had powder coated. Look at the difference in that. The tank looks good, and then you see this. Like, that's just not acceptable. And again, it just comes down to a money part in the game. But what we need to do next here is set up all of the fuel stuff. One other thing I wanted to show you too, I did go ahead and replace this little piece. It does mount up perfect right now. There we go. It will bolt up perfect. You see right there. So up above, that's right to the shifter. As I shift this back, this actually pushes forward, so it'll go tink, tink, tink. So yeah. So that's all bolted up, and that'll bolt into there perfect, and it stays away from everything. So just a reminder, if you do the Aristo and you do have an automatic, you want to rob this off of it, or you have to modify your factory one. So if I come over here, you'll need to modify this one and turn this flange the complete opposite. So you'll have to make it do a 90-degree bend. So either someone have to cut that off or weld another piece on. So either or you can just buy that piece, I would assume. So you guys can make that decision. What we're doing though, again, is fuel. So again, big shout out to Red Horse for supplying all this here. So what we're gonna be doing is -8 feed. Now I am not, I repeat, not doing PTFE. And you guys seen I've done PTFE, some other things. I personally opted to not. I want to show you guys how to do PTFE, but when it comes to some other things, I actually don't like it. There's some goods, there's bads about PTFE. One, it's usually stiffer. This is VITON fuel line, so this is 85 safe also. Now, unlike traditional, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Not nylon, but traditional nitrile line, which is not meant for E85, and it has a stench to it. This will not make your garage stink, just like my car as he's opening the hood. That is race flux line in that car, and it uses VITON line too, meaning that it won't stink, it won't break down. It is not as durable as PTFE, but if you break it down to a percentage, you're actually looking at like something like a 0.01% durability difference. So if you really look in the grand scheme of things, there's no real difference. So, and I prefer this because it's much easier to make the fittings. And again, then the return is going to be -6. So a -8 feed, a -6 return. And then with that, we are going to be using these Red Horse fuel pumps here. So Red Horse actually makes their own fuel pumps. They make a fuel filter, and they make this handy dandy little regulator too. So that's what I'm using. Here's some of the fittings. I need to get a few more yet. I'm waiting for the intake manifold to come from MCC Loyalty so I can start mocking all this up on her car. Now, one thing I will have to do is on her car, or on her car, I need to use the radium mount. So on my car, I have the radium mount that you use for the fuel filter. On Colton's car, he's already got it. So I made sure we could test fit it, and it will work with this. You just have to wrap around a little bit of this non-conductive rubber to keep it like held in there tight. So that will work. And this does have a 10 micron stainless steel filter in it, just like my Supra does too. So again, guys, I'm gonna try and show you guys as much as I can here today, as I do need some parts before I can really get this tied up. All right, guys, so I put the car back down because I ran those few lines here, and I want to show you some stuff here in the tank, or in the trunk of the car first. So I went ahead and removed all the lines, which you guys saw. Now back here in the tank, I have this ghetto cap off right now. Got it capped here too. This is your breather line. So this is where the breather line would have ran the whole way up, around this side, up around the back of the engine. Would have came up front here on the car, and it would have then ran here to a canister, which that canister then ran down here and up under the engine. Crazy, right? But I'm no longer running that. I always get rid of it. And what some people do is they put like a little breather on it or something. I personally, on my other car, I don't have anything because the tube is so small. The amount of dirt getting in there is very minute, and the bags in there will take care of that. I probably should run a filter just to be safe. I won't be running this fuel hanger, so I'll eventually be selling this, guys. So if you're interested, let me know. I'll be selling this setup once I get my Powerhouse Racing hanger in. I wanted to show you all those fittings have been removed. I do need to unplug this yet too, as I will be using some of the wires to trigger the fuel pump setup. I will be using this breather also. This is your return, that's your feed. This is a breather line off of the tank itself. I'm not sure where that goes exactly. It comes off somewhere. That again is for your actual charcoal canister. So I just wanted to show you guys that. Now I do need to get another car, raise this thing up, and I also need to start running the lines the whole way up and in. In the past, I started in the back and ran them forward, but because I didn't have the hanger yet, I'm doing the opposite. Personally, I prefer to start in the back, work my way forward. I personally think that's a lot easier, so just want to give you guys a heads up. The way I'm doing it today is just because, well, I want to get stuff done before the twins get here, and I got to work with what I got. Another thing is I did decide that I'm going to use a radium fuel pressure regulator, which is a direct mount. So I am going to use a radium direct mount just like it is on my car here, just for simplicity factor. They have a new one that's out, so I will get the latest and greatest there. And another thing I wanted to show you guys is this. I decided, let's make everything AN the world. Red Horse is kind enough to supply all this stuff, so let's AN the world, right? I haven't decided how I'm gonna run this line yet. You can see I've got a long piece of line down there, but that is what I'm going to use for fitting. It is a 3/8 slip-on fitting. So that's what you use for, say, I'm trying to think here. You would use it for a flex fuel sensor, and you do have to grind down or make some room around the nipple on the actual brake booster. And then I actually stuffed some rubber up in here too to help keep it as much grip. I've seen guys do this before, so it should work. And then I'd use 180-degree fitting coming off of it. And then that is some -6 hose. I should mention this is all -6 fittings and hose. And you can use regular hose, like nitrile hose will work for this. This happens to be VITON hose, so it should literally last forever, but you don't need to use anything that fancy. Now again, I don't like, see how it's kind of kinked? I don't like that. I'm not sure if I'm gonna run around it. I'm just not sure. Red Horse also supplies, or they also sell, I should say, they sell a check valve that's AN, which is cool. I had no idea they sold it. So I'm gonna be getting one of those, and I'll be showing you guys how to run off the bottom. I won't be able to show it in this video as I'm gonna have to wait on those parts, but it's another thing we're gonna be doing with this, which is gonna be trick. Again, we're gonna AN everything on this. I gotta get a catch can yet. There's so many other things I need to get, but it's just trickle down effect, right? All right guys, so back to the fuel system here. Finally got a few other parts in. I am going to use a radium direct mount fuel pressure regulator. Now, why am I using this? Well, I didn't want to mount it on the body for the fresh paint, so this is a direct mount fuel pressure regulator. This mounts directly on the fuel rail. So I actually have their first generation, and their second generation is a lot nicer. One, if you can see here, they've actually added ports on both sides, which I like, either side. This is for a sensor, so you can put a sensor on both sides. So if you had a fuel pressure sensor, then you could have a temperature there, or you can be like me. I have one of the new Bosch sensors that reach temperature and fuel pressure, which is pretty cool. You can see my first generation right here, back when they had a green top, and you can see it has like this mounting plate to make it a direct mount. Well, instead of doing that, they came with this new one. There's no mounting plate in the side, and they figured out to use this inverted hex head, I forget what this is called, I can't think of it in my head, to actually get this on, because this swivels. So let me get here. You can see that swivels. That allows us to swivel on, kind of like the bottom one. And to get that on, I'm like, how does this go on? And as soon as I switch it over, I'm like, oh my God. This is why I like Radium too. Those guys, it's a group of engineers. So unlike, and this is not a knock about anyway, but they're actual engineers. So they go a little bit above and beyond, which I like. Same with this bottom one. I'm like, how do you install these swivels? And again, inverted there. And it attaches. Now, I was going to use a straight fitting off the bottom because it's going like this and the fuel's going down. The problem is, what I want to do is, I want to attach this flex fuel sensor directly off of it. I want no hose off of this. So it's going to be right off of here, directly into flex fuel sensor. So I was going to use a -6 to -6 female fitting straight off the bottom of this. The problem with that was it was going to hit my starter. So I actually need to use this fitting. So it pushes it off to the side. And then I use this female to female -6 fitting. So -6 fitting, because I can't talk. This -6 fitting here. Then it goes into this 3H slipover fitting that goes on top of the flex fuel sensor. This is a GM flex fuel sensor. a real GM one too. I wanted to make sure I got a proper one. Last thing I want this thing to do is fail. You can see there on the back, it has the GM part number and stamp too. And then off the bottom of this, I'm going to be using a straight -6 fitting then. So very simple setup. So this is what it should look like when it's all mounted. So give me a second here. I'll show you on the table first and foremost. So this is the best representation I can give you guys. So this is where the fuel rail attaches. Then it comes down the bottom. It will then 90 off into the female to female fitting, directly into the 85 sensor, down to that fitting there, which is another 3/8 inch fitting, down to the actual -6 fitting that goes into the fuel line. That fuel line then will go the whole way back, no brakes, the whole way back to the fuel tank, and attached with a 90-degree fitting. So after this, there's 0 fittings. This is the only fittings you have, and I know it looks like a monstrosity in a way, but if you think about it, usually guys mount this somewhere else, so you would have the fitting off of here, so you'd have a straight or 90-degree fitting, okay? Then that would go into another fitting that goes into this fitting, and then so on and so forth. So I mean, technically this is less fittings and less leak points. It just looks like a monstrosity. And it also keeps this hidden, it keeps it up too, so I'll be able to plug this in easier. In my opinion, this is just a much easier way of doing it. So what I'm gonna do is mount this up. Again, to get this on then, they do have a hex head here. This use a regular like AN wrench to tighten it up. And then they have a VITON O-ring. VITON is king. And I'll start making the line for the bottom. Again, it's gonna be one -6 line. I got 30 feet of it, which is overkill, but this is the setup I wanna use. All right, so I've got the whole system done. It was just a lot of going back and forth. I spent hours, believe it or not, making sure it sits up. I'm really weird because of fuel system and something hitting it. So I'm really weird about all this. I know probably shouldn't take that long, but again, I was also enjoying myself. I was having an ice cold beverage, of course. But I also like things to look a certain way. And even still, the fitting setup, I'm not 100% happy with. I did find out, unfortunately, Red Horse doesn't sell this, but I did send it over to them. So they'll probably start making it now. I love that Red Horse listens to suggestions. Great company for that. I want to use a -6 orb to female fitting. So that would allow it to come directly off the bottom of that regulator, directly into the fuel, the 85 sensor, and then off the bottom of that, they make a fitting that goes directly on, so you wouldn't have 2 fittings there on the bottom either, that goes directly on with the hose to the flex fuel sensor. So that eliminates 2 fittings right there in itself, which I really like that. So that would clean it up some, wouldn't have that kink off to the side. I don't know, the reason I kind of like the kink though too, was the fact that it kept it away from the starter. So I did put a fire sleeve on it. So with this braided hose, the braid is actually supposed to be a layer of protection. Besides looking good, it's supposed to be a layer of protection. But I put a fire sleeve on it too, just to add another layer for rubbing and stuff. I know it's for heat, but it adds a layer of protection too, just in rubbing aspects. So I did get that done. I will have to put the car back up in the air and show you underneath. I'm gonna go ahead and forewarn you guys, the underside of this car needs cleaned up. The engine bay, the outside, the interior and stuff is good, but I would like to recoat the undercarriage, and then the whole rear subframe needs dropped out and powder coated. So when you guys see it, be like, oh my God. The reason I left it like that, again, is because, well, I'll get to it in some other time. So in the front here, so just to give you guys a little heads up, we have the fuel rail here. We've got a MCC Loyalty intake manifold. So what we're doing here is in the front, we're using a -8 orb fitting, and then that goes into a -8 120-degree fitting. So you can see here, it's not 90. I had to go a little bit extra. And the reason for this is to keep it away from this power steering pump. Now, most people use a 90, but it puts more stress on that line. I don't like that. I probably could have got away with going to a 165-degree fitting. It would bring it out that way even more. But that's what I had. So that's what I used. That then goes down underneath. So that'll go to your fuel pressure regulator, or go down to your fuel filter. Now on the back here, this is your return. And again, guys, doesn't matter what you do. You can flip flop this, but this is how I prefer it. I always feed in the front, return in the rear of the rail. So there is, again, your fuel pressure regulator. Now I haven't put the sensors in the side yet. It's something I do need to do. So again, there's the ports there for the sensors. You can put one on the back side or the front side here. Again, it's coming off the side, goes down to the flex fuel sensor there, and then runs underneath the car. Now, I have to put this back up so you guys can see this a little bit better, but I think I did a pretty good job and I'm pretty happy with all of this. So here is your fuel filter. There's a Red Horse fuel filter held in with a Radium Engineering mounts. Now, the reason I use this mount, and it doesn't fit in here perfectly, is the fact that it gives me a hard mount. I used to always zip tie everything over here and it would bang around. I just think if you're gonna do it once. I think these mounts are 45 bucks and they bolt in and just fit nice. All I did was took a little piece of rubber, like very thin, and put it on the back side of this, and when it clamped it down, it gave it a you can see, I'm shaking the whole damn car, it's scary. It gives it plenty of clamping force without damaging anything. I've already taken off twice and there's no marks or anything like that in it either. So highly recommend this mount with this filter. And again, so this is your feed. So this line here, which you have the straight -8 fitting on, this went to the front of the rail. So you look here, it goes the whole way up in there. It would go to the front of the rail. Then down here, we have a 45-degree -8 that comes up here into these Powerhouse Racing mounts. If you guys don't have these, get a set. They're very nice to have. I need to get 2 more in here yet. And then I want to show you here in the back. If we can look up here, it's kind of hard to see. You can just barely see, but here is our fire sleeve right there. That fire sleeve then tucks behind the mount. I didn't have to use any zip ties because you literally had to actually undo this mount to get the line behind it. Now, it doesn't squish it or anything, but it doesn't allow enough gap here for the line to come out, which I really liked because I didn't want it moving too much. But you obviously want this line to move, right? Just like this line has to be able to move. And why is that? Well, the engine's rocking back and forth. You need it to move some. So this line can still move. You can see here, I want it to be able to do that, but the fire sleeve gives it protection from rubbing against the body and then rubbing down here. And then again, it runs the whole way back. You can see here, runs the whole way back. And I put little pieces of heat shrink on this, or heat film, or whatever the heck it's called, the heat wrap. And that's to keep it nice and tight up inside the Powerhouse Racing mount. These are all cut out for -8, so I used these to help keep it nice and tight so it wouldn't slide out. And again, once you get the length right, it shouldn't, but I wanted to keep it tight. The -8's nice and tight, so I wanted to keep that uniformity, so to keep it tight up against the body. These brake lines I'm unsure of. I might have to replace those, haven't decided yet. So again, got one here. And then this is where we have to put our first zip tie. Now again, guys, ignore this. I'm gonna have to clean this undercarriage up eventually, but that's where we put our first zip tie. And then again, you need to ask for an extra Powerhouse Racing mount to get this one. And then it goes from here and it goes up in here. See if I can get it to focus at all. Come on, we'll get up in there. You can't see it, unfortunately. You can see the lines up top there, but there's one mount before it over to this side. Again, 2 zip ties. So zip tie over there, I put 1 zip tie there. And then it comes under the crossover here and it goes into this factory mount. So the hard lines used to run here. I take out, there's a plastic piece inside of here that would make it too tight. Take that out, and then I use this factory cover to keep everything protected. And it's a better angle from that shot. Then it goes from there and goes up inside the tank. You can just barely see the lines there. Goes up inside the tank, and then they're not terminated yet. What I mean is they're not terminated, I mean that they do not have any fittings on them yet because I'm waiting for the Powerhouse Racing hanger, and I don't want to terminate them till I have the hanger so I know exactly. So I left a little bit long, and that's when you guys are going to be wondering next is, how much hose length did I use? Well, when it came down to the hose length, I ended up using around 17 feet, roughly 17, 18 feet. I measured it there, but that's like give or take for, making small mistakes, some stuff a little long, and when I cut it down, I need to cut a little bit more off. So if you're gonna order it, order 20 feet. Just be done. It's just a little bit more money. It sucks to come up short. Having a little bit extra never hurts. So order that little bit of extra. You're splitting hairs at that point. The fittings are a lot more money than the fuel line itself, especially if you don't get the PTFE, which again, I prefer non-PTFE, especially if it's VITON line. This VITON line is pretty freaking amazing these days. So yeah. And on that note, guys, thank you very much. I hope this video was helpful. Again, this is for the fuel system for her car. I'll show you putting the hanger in next. I'll kind of go over a few other things. Next up, we got to run some more electrical for her car. I got to do some more stuff to Colton's car. And I eventually got to rip the engine out of mine to start this BC build.